Hey, this is Alan, and we're going to do another video update of our Core Sound 20 Mark III build. It's been a few weeks since the last update. One weekend we were out sailing, and this past weekend we actually had our water heater go out on us. So yesterday, Saturday was spent solving that problem, and so we got some boat work done Sunday. But where we last left off, we were getting to the point where we could coat all these cockpit lockers. And so while I've been at work at B&B, Taylor has gotten all these cockpit lockers coated with 3 coats of epoxy in the port side, the starboard side, in the little storage space at the foot of the bunk here. And also she got the entire bunk tops and up to the side stringer coated with epoxy, as well as the forward locker, and the anchor well was pretty much already coated. But that was a huge, kind of a milestone, because that's getting close to where we can paint the cabin. And she also got the hatch rings coated. I think last time these were not coated, so these have 3 coats on them. And yesterday we installed these hatch rings, and you can see I put a little drywall screw here in the corner to dry fit them, so they were lined up exactly where we wanted them. And then this little stick here just bridges between the hatch and the cleat that holds up the seat top, just to keep that in plane. And these don't go all the way to the side of the hull, because remember, there's a backrest, a cockpit coaming that goes here that'll stiffen up the seat top, and with this extending out, there's no stress concentrations or anything to worry about. So just that's a note on that. And we use some long reach clamps to reach down in there and squeeze the lower portion to the side of the hull. And there's a fillet that runs right up in here. And you'll see I don't have my cleats here. That's the next, or one of the next things to do, is put the cleats here across the tops of the outboard side of the seat top longitudinal bulkheads, as well as the top of this bulkhead. And I've cut and fit these seat top beams. They're over there on the table with a coat of epoxy. Theirs are going to get 3 coats of epoxy on the workbench, and then we will install them. It's just easier to do it that way. Of course, over here is going to be our ice box. And so I started fitting some foam in there. I was going to cut the foam on the CNC machine, but I just never got around to it. So this weekend I started making those parts. And you can see my mess here, but I'll show you those. So I just templated and made this piece. This is the first piece of foam that's going to go down in there, and this is the second piece of foam. So we're going to have 4 inches of foam in the bottom of the boat. Those are going to get glued down in there with some microspheres to fill up the last little gaps around the foam. And then we're going to build up the walls also with 4 inches of foam. And I'm not planning to build the bottom of the cooler box all the way up to the cockpit sole like Graham did in his boat. Of course, that would allow the cooler to drain overboard, but you also give up a fair amount of volume doing that. So I think instead we're planning to just use cooler packs, frozen cooler packs, as opposed to using ice in our cooler. And that way we won't have to deal with the melting ice problem and the drainage problem. If you plan to go on a 2 or 3 day trip and you fill the bottom of the cooler with frozen cooler packs, that should last a couple of days. Graham's cooler usually keeps ice for about 3 days, so that seems pretty good. And we can always add foam to the bottom if we ever want to have the ability to drain the cooler overboard. Okay, what else? The outboard well has progressed somewhat. I had the outboard in there yesterday, and I made the cutout ever so slightly bigger. aft radius here is approximately 8 inches. And I stopped at about 1.25 inches from the vertical post on the transom. And the whole well, see if I can do this one-handed right now. Okay, there you go. The well is 2 feet long from front to back, exactly 24 inches. And at the front of the well, the width is 6 inches. 6 inches, all right. And how I arrived on that was basically when I spun the outboard around, this is the farthest forward point, and so this swept a circle which was 6 inches. I actually think I'm gonna widen it another 1/4 inch up here to clear that. And this little plate here is about flush with the bottom, or in line with the bottom approximately. And that's how I arrived on that. This is a Tohatsu 3.5 short shaft motor. And the lower unit comes up and clears the vertical post, and it looks like it's going to work pretty good. So then we cut the aft portion of the seat top with a cutout there, as you can see. And I ended up going with 9.25, approximately 9.25 inches from the transom, with a 7-inch radius here to the 25-inch spacing of the longitudinal cockpit's seat sides. And I think I figured out how I'm going to do the well. Basically, I think I'm going to run the cockpit sole all the way to the transom and then just build a rectangular box for the outboard to sit in. So I'll post more on that pretty soon. And coming up forward here, Taylor installed the forward locker top yesterday. So today her plan is to put a fillet around that, and we can start getting a coat of epoxy on there. And in here she got these cleats coated, a couple more coats in there, and then the anchor well bottom will be installed. And we're coming up on pretty soon we'll be able to install our shear strake, so we're looking forward to that. And here you can see the cockpit hatch is on the inside. Taylor's been coating them. I think this is the second coat after the first coat was sanded to smooth it out. And yesterday I glued up another one of these square logs here for my fiberglass angles. So let me get in the boat and I'll show you the first round. This is the second round. I'm gonna have to make one more after this. Okay, here we are in the cabin, and I'm looking aft at the forward part of the ballast tank. This is the lowest point of the tank right in here, which is where our straw will go down for the ballast water. We're gonna be installing a 2-way ballast pump that will fill and empty the tank, and we'll be getting that pretty soon so we can do our plumbing, and so we can finish off this part of the tank and get the lid glued down. So these are the fiberglass angles from the first glue up that I talked about in the previous video. They came out really good, and there's pictures on the build album showing how I glued this in. Basically I used some sticks to keep everything in plane. And there's 2 more pieces that go in here on top of these baffles. And that's pretty much it. You can see I've got a few little gaps in the corners, but what I'll do is when I'm ready to glue the tank top down, I'll fill in all those little gaps with a putty knife, and then we'll use our cake batter bag to squeeze out thickened epoxy on all the gluing surfaces, glue the lid down, and then it'll have a fillet. Here's a look at it with the lid in place, and the compartment just ahead of this is where our batteries are going to go. And I have not decided 100% how I'm going to run my wiring yet. but we need to start thinking about that because I suspect I'm gonna need to run a wire through the cooler box to access the transom. I've decided we're gonna use hull mounted navigation lights as opposed to masthead tricolor or something like that. I just would prefer not to run wires up the mast with the added complication. Graham did that on his boat, and it's really nice to have that navigation light at the top of the mast, but we could always change to that if we wanted to. So what I'm planning right now is I've got to get my main battery wires run from here somehow up to here where we're going to have our power panel. And one way to do that is to run them up the edge or the side wall of this panel here, like right in there. And that's probably what I'm gonna do, and we'll build a little U-shaped cover that will just cover that wire, because then you can run up under here and punch through here, and then there's your panel right there. So that's probably what's gonna happen. And then from there I can run a conduit through the top of the cooler to access the stern, and I can run down that little conduit into the bunk top, and then I can run forward. And the solar panel wires will come in through the deck and come aft here, and any cabin lighting will run around the top of the deck. Okay, this is a little side project I did. I've been looking to get a air filter here for the shop because this is just a 2-car garage. I don't have a dust collector, and the table saw makes a lot of dust, and so I almost bought one of those cheap air filters that you hang from the ceiling. And then I stumbled across a few YouTubers who were doing this sort of thing, and I liked that idea a lot. So I bought this box fan and these air filters, and I'm really glad I found this one guy who posted a video where he showed one of these, and he made one that's 3-sided. So this actually has filters on all 3 sides, and then the top and the bottom are just you know, sealed. So I was actually able to use the box, the cardboard box that the fan came in, to do the top and the bottom, and it's all put together with just hot melt glue and a little bit of tape here and there, I think. But I measured the draw of the fan with and without the filters. I can't tell any difference, so I don't think the fan is straining at all to pull the air through these 3 filters. And these are charcoal activated carbon charcoal filters, so they should help a little bit with any kind of fumes. And I bought the filters in a 6-pack, and I bought 2 fans. So I'm actually gonna build another one of these, and the plan is to hang one here in the shop and hang one there in the shop, and we can start to get a little circulation going here to help to filter out the dust in the shop. So I'm gonna put a link in the video description if you want to get stuff to make one of those. Some people added a little variac so they can adjust the fan speed, but I'll just show you what it sounds like. Okay, there's what it sounds like when it's on. I'm pretty sure that's the medium setting. The high setting's a little bit loud, and the low setting doesn't have a lot of airflow, but you can definitely feel the air pulling through it.